Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Event Marketing Redefined. I am your host, Matt Kleinrock, CEO of Rockway Exhibits and Events. And today we are talking about private events, national sales conferences, leadership summits, user conferences, staffing events, really these micro events that are going on constantly, whether they for our internal use or whether they are actually replacements to sort of trade shows and other marketing avenues. They're becoming more and more popular by the day. More and more brands are turning to micro events and creating and building out their own smaller conferences. And we're going to talk about it today. So I have with me senior account executive on my Rockway team, Mollie Stahl, who some of you may know if you listen. Mollie, thanks for being back.
Yes, excited to talk about this one too. I feel like it's been really popular. We're working on a couple of these. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I need to have you here because you have executed a few of these and you are working on a few of these. So I think what's interesting today, what we're going to do is kind of what we've done in the past, right? We're going to take a topic like this. We're going to talk about it. We're going to try to explain it to you, give you context, help you understand how people are using micro events, small conferences, user events, summits. Obviously, they have a million different names, right? But then what we're also going to do is walk you through one that we have executed, right? So I'm going to interview Mollie here a little bit and talk about a recent one that she did. And we executed what I would consider to be a small conference, small event for the National Association of Manufacturers. And we executed it in Marco Island, Florida at the JW Marriott. It was, again, 300 to 400 attendees, small-ish event, right? Mollie, tell us a little bit about when NAM, we'll call them NAM, right, came to us, what exactly they were trying to accomplish and what they were looking for, because I think that'll help people understand what they were trying to pull off here.
Right. And so to your point too, that this was a small event that they were hosting for their sponsors, right? Because they're the National Association of Manufacturers. They have a lot of big name brands that sponsor them, that help with them. So this is an event they put on for their sponsors, right? So there was a little expo hall too that their exhibitors could go to, but basically they've been doing this event for like the last 10 years, I believe. So it's not something new that they've done. It's kind of evolved over the time, right? From when it first started to now. Basically their goals for the event was like ability for sponsors to showcase and their expertise and build relationships, a sense of community with like-minded individuals, and then provide attendees with like the best thought leadership around manufacturing.
I like those. I think what I like about those is, and just so we're constantly clarifying this, there are a lot of micro events. There's so many different types, right? We are specifically talking about an association who's running their own, utilizing their sponsors, but we are going to get to, as we roll through this, the differences between national sales conferences, user conferences, people creating an event just out of thin air to simply host a more intimate event. But I think events of this size, 100, 200, 300, 400 people, when you're hosting a conference, they are more intimate. And that is the general direction that a lot of brands, companies are going, is they're saying, hey, if I'm going to spend $250,000 on a trade show booth or some other sponsorship or event at a third party, why not I be the third party? Why not create my own, take that money and have control of it on my own? And essentially NAM is the association here. So they are bringing all the sponsors together, but they are keeping it intimate. They are keeping it smaller per se. I do love the sense of community goal that you gave, Mollie, right? They said they had a goal of like-minded individuals and sense of community. I really like that.
Yeah, no, same. Because then and I think to your point too, and we can get into more of it, it's like your own event, you're creating it. And so you have control over pretty much like everything. So I love that they have like that sense of community with like-minded individuals, because they're creating this event and they can make this community what they want and not just a part of like another trade show. And you don't know where it's going to actually end up.
I remember you and I talk about, and if I skip on this, just let me know, but I think it's a cool piece. When they came to us, they had been running this event for quite some time, and they were really wanting to, I believe the terminology was like step it up, which is an interesting piece, because I think a lot of these events, these smaller events, have this stigma of being pipe and drape, of looking very blah, like just very like run of the mill, not a lot. And I think this is somewhere where by no means pitching us, but essentially saying like, there are ways out there nowadays to take these micro events or these smaller conferences and really step them up and give people an awesome experience. Because ultimately that's what people want.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of these events are happening at hotels, right? No matter what you call it, different events are all happening at hotels. So sometimes what hotels can just offer are more of like a shell scheme look that's very kind of old school, right? White panels. You can just have one little small graphic on there. Everyone looks the same. So to your point, when NAM came to us, they wanted to step it up. They wanted to enhance what they have done in the past to be latest with like the latest trends, the latest technologies, because they go to different events, right? All of these sponsors they do as well. So they're seeing like the latest and greatest, different, just better looking designs that are a little bit more customized than what they have provided in the past. So something that they even had mentioned too is like that they want to like stay relevant to their sponsors, right? Like I said, there are some big names in here that come to this event. And so they don't want to put on an event that is not like exciting and not engaging. It's not like not top of the line, right? Because it doesn't always have to be that top of the line, but that it's still like with the trend, and like a company's not going to be like, well, the event kind of like, it's not that great, so we don't want to go to it. We'll
stick in the mud. Yeah. I mean, look, I talked about this. I mean, over my last 2 conversations that I had on our live show, one with Debbie Kemp, one with Sonia Murphy, right? I mean, literally conversations saying, if you're going to get people out, drive them an experience. These events have to be better. They have to step it up. You have to create engagement. You need to give people opportunities that if they're going to go face to face, I mean, I don't care if it's a massive trade show with 50,000 people there or whether it's a small conference with 300 people, right? You need to give people opportunities to engage and you need to give them experience. So I love this example with what we did with them because we really kind of took it up a notch for them. Tell everybody here just from a experience, right? What did we actually create, build, and do for them? What did we enhance at this small event for them?
So they actually have about like 20 to 25 sponsors that come in, right? So it's all like a couple days of events, right? So you come in, there's like registration desk. They have a lot of different areas that they can engage with, but we really helped with was the expo hall, the lounge area, a bunch of different signages around the entrance area.
Walkways,
walkways. And so they came to us and was like, hey, like we've been doing pop-up banners, pull-up banner stands. We've been offering, really basic furniture from the hotel, right? With like a skirted tablecloth on there, just very much like simple. Wasn't a bad setup. It was not. It was just kind of simple what hotels can provide. And then very small standard graphics, just didn't have a big wow factor. So that's what they kind of started with. And then they're like, we've evolved just like an association. We have really good sponsors. We want to really step this up for them. And plus they hadn't had an event since pre-COVID, so 2019, and they really wanted to come back with a splash and set a precedence for what and who they are coming back. So what we did, they all ranged, right? It was like kind of a long, skinny hallway and a ballroom that we could have about, I think they ended up with 26 different layouts in there. And so they're smaller,
sponsors.
right? There's for the sponsors, yes. And so we gave them like a packet of like 10 different designs that range from 5x10s to 10x30 layouts. And so they were able to take that packet and go to their sponsors, and sponsors were able to choose and whatnot.
So not everyone was getting the same booth, just in a line or a banner stand with a table, right? Like everybody, like when I'm thinking about experience, like, so I'm thinking just off the cuff here, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, so NAM has sponsors that are paying that want to be there for the attendees to get in front of them. That's the name of the game with events, right? You're going to have people who will pay to get in front of your audience, or you are bringing in the audience for yourself in another type of event, right? So I think, what we're saying here to a degree is like a lot of hotels, a lot of smaller events, what is offered for a registration desk? What is offered for like an archway walking into the ballroom in a hotel? What is offered for table throws and tables as a sponsor? A lot of the times it can just be crap. It can be pure crap. And I really want people to know on this call, on this podcast and this episode, is that there is way more out there, and it is not astronomically costed. It's not some like ridiculous, like a sales, like a Dreamforce event. Like there is just ways to step this stuff up to where your registration is an enhanced look, appearance, lighting, lounge areas, all this stuff. All right. So take us into the exhibits. I think it's interesting that the exhibitors essentially weren't going to end up with all the sponsors with the same exact booth. I mean, there was options for them. So I think that gave them value.
Right. No, exactly. And then we had to design like a cohesive, different designs, right? They all couldn't be crazy different because it
Yeah.
needed to look like one event, everything flowed together, but then there was different packages that they could get them. And a lot of things that we did was like backlighting, right? I mean, that's super popular right now, but just even in this smaller room with a bunch of backlit graphics, that was great. You know, we did greenery, we stepped up, we did like branded furniture. We put like flooring on top of the ballroom floor to really like dominate some of the
Yeah.
spaces, frame them out, right? Because sometimes
Yeah.
we
Bring it
can't
to
almost.
life. Yep.
Yep. We did other trends like TVs. They had no technology before either, right? So it's such a small detail that you don't even like think about. And it's
Yeah.
nothing earth shattering to your point, like adding a TV, doing backlit graphics. And we did just small or way but nicer furniture than they were used to.
Yeah.
You know, and when you just say it out loud, it doesn't seem like anything super crazy.
No.
And you look at what they had done to this upscale.
Such a difference of experience. One thing I would say is anyone listening, you can go to our website, rockwayexhibits.com. You can go to our case studies there and you will find it's called the NAM case study, right? So you'll see the pictures of the ballroom. You'll see the entranceway. You'll see everything that we're talking about. And I think this goes back to, Mollie, I want to tie it back and kind of jump around here a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to tie it back to small events, user conferences for software companies, national sales conferences for big organizations that are hosting 200-300 salespeople, right? Internal staffing meetings. Like, you're going to bring people in person. The biggest trend and theme that I am seeing by doing this podcast, talking to people, being in the industry is intimacy, experience, and engagement. So I think there's a lot of thought that the bigger the event, the larger the crowds, the bigger the hall and convention center, it loses intimacy. It loses experience. And if it's controlled by this big third association party, they may not be delivering those things. So you're essentially overpaying to a degree to be there. So companies, brands are saying, hey, screw it. We're going to do this ourselves. So whether it's host an event, build something at a hotel and invite in the 40 clients that they have to have there. And then the 40 prospects that they're saying, hey, like, we'll fly in, we'll set you up at the hotel 3 days, some dinners. We're going to have a speaker. We're going to have this, we're going to have that, but it's your event. It's your control. So you can now deliver the experience, the person you want. And then I think that doubles into, say you're hosting a national sales conference, annual staff meeting, all get together. These are your people. These are your team. You're going to get them out. You're going to get them to come together. You want the experience to be there. You want it to be trendy, on point. And I think that's one of the points that they made to you at NAM was it's super important to grow with the trends and to be relevant when people walked into an event.
Yeah. No, and I think it's a great point too. And, you know, I think to what you said about like not going to the shows, some of them aren't, but like a lot of clients that I see, right, go to multiple shows, but then maybe won't go to one because they'll nix it. And then they're starting to think about, okay, well, we still need to go to these conferences, but we want to have something a little bit more intimate, a little bit more personalized. So we'll drop out of one conference that they're just there just because they have to be there, right, for their competitors or whatever. It's not that great of an ROI. They'll create these events. And I think for people listening, it's like, where do you start? Like, I think on one of your past podcasts, Matt, in the live show, you had someone say that one of their private events failed. They only had like 7 people come, right? I don't remember exactly how in depth that was, but I would say like, if you're going to start and think about doing your own event, it's like, why do you want to do your own event? What does that look like? Who do you want to be there? Or are you showing a product, showcasing that, like who is coming, or do you have sponsors that you can show and have like a mini exhibit hall? Like, you really have to start with the why. And you have to be methodical and strategize to plan properly to achieve the success at these smaller events. I actually think they're more challenging to be successful to plan your own private event than just going to a trade show that already has it set up for you. So you do have to put in more work, I think. And I think that's when like whatever branding partner you're working with, to also like rely on them to help and be like, what's your experience? What do you see? Because a lot of people call these events so many different things. I mean, it's just all of that. There's so many different names. And so it's like, ask what has worked. What's your branding partner seen? Like, what's been successful? What hasn't? Because I think it is challenging, but it can be super rewarding in the end.
Yeah. You really have to be considering product, service. What are you trying to get people to do? Right. I mean, We did the podcast the other day with Debbie Kemp from Canon Medical. I mean, she basically built out an 18-wheeler, put all their product in it and drove it around to hospitals, parked outside, gave people lunch, and she packed out the trailer with people wanting to know their product, right? So,
Yeah.
and it's kind of going to a degree to replace them being at some trade shows, right? So it's a convenience of going to where people are. Do you have a region where you have more customers than maybe others, right? Do you have a convenient location somewhere where you can get people? Can you bring them in for 2-3 days so that it's a focused group to sit and have conversation, discussion? And I think at the end of the day, it really comes back to, what are your goals as a brand, as a company? What are you trying to accomplish by being face-to-face? No one asks themselves that. They just go to big annual trade shows, right? And I love trade shows. Look, it's a huge part of our business. I'm not talking poorly about them. I do just think that people have to be considering why they're there, what they're doing, and then what are alternatives. Because at the end of the day, you spend time, energy, and money to get face-to-face, to have conversation, to build relationship, to engage, and you need to be doing it in the right way. And there are a lot of opportunities to do that. Meaning, if you're just going to a trade show, your annual one once a year, and you're not really adding prospects into the pipeline, you're not really funneling people into the top, and you're more so just seeing current customers that you know and things of that nature, God, I just wonder, is it really truly worth it? Can you downsize, attend that show, take however much of that budget and throw an event at a hotel near your facility, fly in? Again, like I said, fly in your 20 biggest customers, get their feedback, bring in 20, 30 prospects, have your sales team hit the ground running with people that they're pitching and saying, hey, we're running this event. We're looking for some thought leaders in our industry to come in and help us. And any way you can get people to get more intimate and more engaging. An event really is all about just getting people together. It could be any size and having meaning and engagement behind it at that point.
Yeah. No, and I think it's on something you said there made me think about this one client that's starting conversations with right now. Some idea that they have is they actually don't want to attend an exhibit at a big trade show that they used to anymore.
Yep.
But what they want to do, because they know that people that they're going to throw a private event in the same time frame as the trade show is going to go on, but it's going to be off-site, super close to a convention center, walking distance for everyone. And they're just going to market the shit out of it and have people, because they know that their audience is there, but they don't, they want to try something new. So they feel like, yeah, they can get okay results from going to the trade show, but let's throw like a nightly private event for us and invite people, because we know our audience is already going to be there. So they are going to the customer or like around where they are, and just inviting people after the trade show to come and see them.
Well, they're making it convenient.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what you're saying. Like, you have to make it convenient for your customer nowadays.
Yeah.
So rather than fly them in, they're thinking a step forward and saying, okay, let's go where they're at. Let's host an event off site or here and there. Let's talk about some examples. I think event marketers and people listening in our industry and space want to hear some examples of things that are different that maybe we've executed or we've seen done. I know the Southwest activation is what I would call it for Southwest Airlines that we did was a really cool one. And essentially what this was, Southwest Airlines looking to throw like staff appreciation. I want to say they pretty much came to us and said, hey, this is roughly what the space size will look like. And we want to execute a build out and an event, a micro event and activation in 3 different cities near our hubs, right? Hub cities like Dallas, Atlanta, somewhere else, and throw an appreciation event, So it's saying, okay, rather than bringing all the Southwest staff from all over the country in, they're saying, we're going to go to you. So this is an example. It's a small event. It's a staff event for a brand. And they asked a company like us to come up with a concept, a design, a space. I want to say it was 1,000 square feet, maybe bigger than that, right? I mean, it was pretty big space that they built out. They asked us to build out. And then they were going to pop it up here, invite and bring them in, give them an experience. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, pop it up here. And I think that's a really good example of usage and what some people are doing nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought that was a great one, because they're, if you're a big enough company, having like your national sales conferences or employee appreciation,
Yeah.
right? Bringing that was like a really employee appreciation
Yep.
event that they put on. There's a ton of stuff going on, engagements inside of that space. I think they even had an outdoor activity area that they had already had like pre-done before, but
Yep.
coffee, timelines of Southwest. They had a really cool like airplane that they had built up that we hung from like one
Oh
of like
yeah, I remember
the
the airplane.
structures. And that was like, yeah, that was my favorite.
I remember
part,
watching the
actually.
guys hang that airplane with the wire. I
Yes.
was like, this is wild. I was a little worried about it because it's made from like metal. It's like a model airplane. It's probably 6 feet in length by 5 feet. I mean, it's a big, it's like a big fake real airplane type thing. That was cool. What's another one maybe we've worked on that we can give background on so people understand what some companies are doing, why they're doing it, and what it looks like?
Yeah, well, we did one for recently this year it was called like GHX Summit. And basically it was a customer experience, right? So the end client does medical devices. So they have like software, but then they also have real product. And so they actually rented out like a huge space in a ballroom and needed this whole room built out for like different demo stations to come in and view their software. How does that work? And they invited all of their customers, current customers and potential customers that they were prospecting, that they could come and get in there. And then they had a whole area that we had built out to come and see the product in real life. And so that was like the gurney of how, you can forget exactly what it was, but the gurney of how it was actually working, their product, and then how it integrated with the software. And then you could see the software separately in a whole other demo area. So you walked in and it looked like, its own mini event because there was different areas.
Yeah.
Everything flowed right. There was a presentation area too off to the side that we built out like the stage, graphics, did AV for, and then they also had like a swag area that you could buy gear for, giveaways. I think it was free. You didn't have to buy it, but it was just a whole, and then we had an entrance sign. This was just a little bit like different because like your customer experience, that's what they really focused on, but showing the actual products and inviting their customers to come down. And it was a huge success.
And that's a really good example of, they could have done that at a trade show. They could have done it at their large annual trade show, right? But they chose not to, which I think is interesting. They chose to spend the money and build out their own mini event at a hotel, create an experience, and build out like a mini exhibit hall that they had full control of. That was theirs. So now, you're controlling who's invited. You're controlling to a degree who's attended, who's there, why they're there. And now you're face to face, you're engaging, you're delivering an experience, and you have your customer, you have your prospects playing, using, viewing, tinkering with your product.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good one because we are seeing more and more of that, right? So, two good examples there. One from Southwest is a staff event, wanting to step it up, travel it around, bring it to their staff in terms of, kind of like a convenience factor, experience factor, rather than have everybody all roll into one spot. And another one is a company that maybe rather than doing something at a trade show or something hosted by someone else, hosting their own and making the effort to invite and bring people in, which I think are really, really cool examples.
Yeah. I have another example too, but I can't give away the name because we're currently working on the project right now, but it's a association for like athletes, right? And so this is a pretty cool event. It's an internal and external type of conference. They bring in like their sponsors, and then they also have like all their employees come for it too. And so basically what they're doing is like a sports experience is what they're calling it. It's like a staff meeting, or not staff, but for exactly how they're phrasing it. They don't actually, they're trying to help us. We're helping them create like what this should actually be called because they want to elevate it from what they've done in the past too. And so they're basically having this event where they need to highlight like different gear that they sell, that they have, and then doing like this whole entire sports experience where people are engaging in all these different activities in the front, but then having an entire like gear store and then what this looks like in the future. So it's around everything that we're talking about, right? Like these people want to build out this room and it's basically an open slate and we're going through the motions about like, okay, what do they want to do? How do we accomplish it? Make the best space out of the room. And just is kind of cool because just kind of starting on this project. And I feel like it's just the playing field is wide open and we're having a lot of strategy discussions and kind of just goes back to like, okay, you have to like this event's not even until 2024, right? So we started this like a month ago. So
got a running start. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're getting ahead of it. So
I think what's cool is that the more that we're having these conversations, and I'm talking with event marketers and even just internally with, prospects and leads that we're fielding, our customers and people we're talking to, is there's really, I think it kind of boils down to one thing. And what that one thing comes down to is getting face-to-face and engaging the customer, right? Obviously, this is a completely different discussion of doing it virtually. I think you should be doing it virtually as well. But the world has changed a little bit. Things are different than the way they used to be, right? And events just being fully content driven and a little bit blah is not enough anymore. When people go somewhere, they want an experience. It's the reason why something like South by Southwest has blown up so big, right? Because it's a little bit of business, it's a little bit of culture, a little bit of fun, festive. It has a lot going on in it. And if you're an event marketer, if you're a brand, you're a company, you're listening to this, like, my advice is to really try to understand your customer, understand where they are, why they're there, and essentially take a look at your events. What are the ones you've always done? What are the annual trade shows? What are the small ones? What are the events, the summits, the conferences, the user? God, there's a billion names for these things. They're all events, right? And my question to you is, can you take a list, write them down, and can you write down why you go to each one? Can you write, are they effective? What do they produce? And start there, because this is an opportunity to start thinking differently for your company about going to get results face-to-face. There's a million options. There's mobile options, right? You can build out a mobile trailer, drive it around the country, East Coast, West Coast. You could do, if you're a company based in Texas and your client base are in Texas, you can go to every single business you work with in Texas and pop up a little road shop thing or something and engage with them, right? There's so many different, there's so many different things you can do. You have to start taking a look at your events and saying, are we truly touching our customer the right way? Are we engaging with them? Are they giving an experience? Are we executing these events properly? Because there's a lot out there. We're giving you some examples. We're breaking some downs of what associations do, what some brands do, national sales meeting, national staff meetings, right? Product-based awareness events, on and on and on. It's all out there. And you can get really, really creative. That's really what it makes me think, Mollie, is that it starts with that stuff. It starts with having an understanding of where your customer is, why, what they're looking for, and how can you make it convenient for them to engage with you, really?
Right. I know. And then create your own success too, right? Like I talked about, like all of that. And then it's like you're creating your own success as a brand or an association.
Yeah.
Because I think, people, trade shows aren't going anywhere, right? And they are valuable. No. But I think it's like, this is taking it a step further in creating, elevating your own brand and elevating, bringing people to you or you going to them. I think it's just a different way to look at it, on top of like adding it to your different events that you guys do.
So here's a thought, I'm just, because events are all different shapes, sizes, forms. So let's say you go to your annual trade show conference, right? And we have a lot of clients who we talk to. They go to this one annual trade show or two of them and they say, oh yeah, all of our clients are there, right? You always hear people say, oh, we have tons of customers there. Oh, we see them. We're sitting on the couch with them. Oh, they're passing by. Like I've heard the story 5 billion times. Well, why don't you rent out a room and one night in that room, cater a dinner and bring in, a speaker for 20 minutes and host some form of like client council meeting where you bring them in, you look for feedback, you ask how you can help them further. Maybe you introduce them, that's an event that you're hosting at your annual conference.
Right.
You're doubling down on the idea that everybody's in that city room, same time, same day. Maybe it's like we mentioned earlier, where you downsize your trade show booth. So rather than spending $400,000 on your trade show booth, you spend $90,000 on your trade show booth. You take $300,000 and you do something offsite different with an invite that's a little bit out of the norm, out of the box, unconventional. I think there's just so many different things that can be done nowadays. And it's all about how to touch your customer personally and sort of give them the experience and face-to-face value that they want to get.
Yeah. And I think these like micro events, right, are like exclusive. So like when you're inviting someone to something, it's they're like, oh, wow, this is like kind of cool. Like you make them feel a little bit special, right? And then people are like, oh, that's awesome. Let's try that. Let's go to that. So yeah, I think that's all great points.
let's jump back into what we were talking about with NAM. So if anybody who wasn't listening in the beginning, we were giving an example of a small event that we put on for NAM, which is the National Association of Manufacturers. We did it in Marco Island. It was like a 300-400 person event. They had sponsors. Give me some of the positive feedback, goals that were reached, things that you think were sort of accomplished by NAM by upgrading this event per se.
Yeah. So we actually had a couple of the sponsors, or they gave us the feedback that were like, oh, wait, we want to use these booths at like our other conferences. Right. So I think that was really good because they, these end users are saying that about the booths and elevated, and a lot of their sponsors were saying just how much of like more upscale event it felt like and was in 2022. And so that, to me, like for us, like that's just like, that's exactly what you want to hear. Right. And then they achieved, all the other stuff they set out to be like, the community that's just there because of the people that they have in the room.
Yeah.
But the overall sense of like just everything being taken to the next level for them was just great. And the amount of feedback that they got, knowing that their sponsors will spend more money for a better upscale event is like, now we're working for, 2023 in the next 3 years for the event as well, and how to elevate those next events. So we're talking right now in conversations about, okay, how do we take what we just did and elevate it even more? And we're right now in the design phase for that. So that's pretty cool because they saw it was so successful, and they went from like, did a big jump, and now they saw it was super successful and people want to pay and they even want that more. So we're trying to see like, how do we make it even better?
I like the idea of what you just said, especially number one about like how they enjoyed the Elevate experience so much that it does a lot of things. People are willing to spend more, right? So if you're a business association event, it's good. It's showing you nowadays that people will pay for experience. They will pay for something that's better. They will pay for an elevated experience that if they can, right? I mean, that, that's a consumer thing, like, but just in a B2B setting, in a business setting, like people still want this experience and they'll pay for it. It makes me think we go to our own events, right? I mean, we go to events where we exhibit, we go to events where we attend for education. We've been to bad ones, right? Yeah. No plan on going back. No, you don't get a ton of shots at it. I think them saying, okay, we want to step up this event. We want to make it trendy, relevant, and an incredible experience is enough of a goal, right? It's enough of a concept when you're throwing an event, because if you want to have a successful event, you need people there. You need attendees, you need sponsors, you need everyone to want to be there to show up. So if you can deliver something like that, like they were able to, God, it just all works. It just works. And then you just keep enhancing it, I feel like.
No, exactly. And that's what they wanted to do. I mean, it was just, phenomenal feedback. I was actually down there, went there and saw it. And it just like, upgraded compared to what.
Oh, I'll bet you were there as the JW Marriott.
I was there. Yes. No, beautiful hotel, right? An area too. I think that's super
awesome,
important when you're planning these events. It's like, obviously the JW in Marco Island, Florida is just drop dead gorgeous in the middle of June. It's hot, perfect weather for the beach, families there. So I think also choosing the locations of where these events are also super important.
Yeah. So I think just to kind of get wrapping up here for everybody, we bounced around a little bit, but I think what we're really trying to convey to you is that smaller events are on the rise, right? I hear people call them micro events. And there's a lot of people that, big companies do user conferences. Dreamforce is one, right? It's huge. It's one of the biggest conference events in the United States now. But if you're a software company, right? And you have users, customers, prospects, like maybe you don't need to attend every single trade show that you think your customer are hoping that they're flying around to, right? Maybe you can host your own user conference. Maybe you're starting to have enough users, enough people where you can get current customers, prospects, and you can host your own little thing. Maybe it's just at, it doesn't have to be the JW Marriott. Maybe it could, you start small and you build it and you make it a user conference. So we want you to start thinking this way is like, man, could we host our own user conference and have 50 people there? Could you get 50 of your customers, prospects, and people to come in and offer them enough value and experience, whether it's training, give them feedback, mentorship with the either software product where they can kick ideas and see what other people are doing? How can you bring them value? That's one way to think about it. Other examples of these micro events we discussed, our annual staff meetings and national sales conferences, right?
Yeah.
They're pretty simple. I mean, you're rounding up your people, you're rounding up your team, and you have to give them an elevated experience. You know what I mean? And there's ways of doing that with these micro events. And then I think the other piece of this is companies that are wanting to throw an event to showcase product and showcase their service and just do something more intimate rather than a large conference that's hosted by a third party. You're taking control by starting your own event. And please understand, these events can be 30 people. They don't need to be 300, 400, 500 people, although that would still be considered a small event. 300, 400, 500 people would still be considered, but they can be smaller, more private, more intimate. And, really, it's something that people need to start considering. They need to consider where your budgets are going, how you're interacting face-to-face, who you are delivering experience to. How do you build that brand affinity with your customer? And I think these smaller private events, they're on the rise. You're going to see more of them. You're going to see more mobile tours. You're going to see people not attending big, large annual trade shows because they're not getting the bang for their buck. And you'll see people using these as alternatives, but also just using them on their own footing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people should just start planning. If it makes sense, I think you should just give it a shot. It's kind of my last thought to top on that.
I would agree. And if you have planned one, if you have executed one, if you've been to Summer Good, I would love to hear from you. Honestly, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can email me at matt@rockwayexhibits.com. I'd love to get an email to hear about it. I'd love to have you on the show to talk about it, because I think the more that we talk about these things and we showcase and explain the usage and the manner in which people are executing these events to get results, like we explained about NAM's, National Association of Manufacturers, how they hosted their own conference, what we did for Southwest Airlines, what we did for the GHX Summit, right? The more people hear usage, the more event marketers, companies, brands will start to understand how they can apply it to themselves. And I think that's really, really important. Mollie, anything else on this? Anything else you want to drop in here and talk about?
Honestly, no. We really hit every point that I really wanted to talk about.
Awesome. Well, I think you did a great job walking us through the kind of NAM job that we executed. It came out great. I would really encourage anybody, if you want to see what a smaller conference that I think is well executed, upscale, for a smaller show, doesn't have the bells and whistles of a Dreamforce, but it's well done and it is stepped up. Go to our website, go check it out. If you're in that size space, hosting an event like that, want to step it up, or are thinking of creating one, this is a good benchmark, I think, for you to take a look at. And that's a wrap for Event Marketing Redefined. Thank you for listening. Thanks for dialing in. Hopefully we will catch you soon on one of our live shows, or we'll catch you on the next episode. I am your host, Matt Kleinrock, CEO of Rockway, and Mollie Stahl. Thank you for being here.